When you think about your home, um, you probably obsess over a few specific things.
Oh, absolutely. Like the kitchen layout or the color of the paint in the living room.
Right, or maybe, I don't know, the landscaping in the front yard. But I can guarantee you there is one massive complex system, arguably the most important one on your whole property, that you never, ever think about.
Never, because it's buried in the yard.
Exactly. It is the ultimate out of sight, out of mind piece of infrastructure. Until, of course, disaster strikes. You step outside on like a beautiful Saturday afternoon to enjoy a barbecue, and there is this unmistakable, foul, sulfurous smell creeping into the garden.
The dreaded rotten egg smell.
Yes. Or maybe you're inside, simply washing your hands, and you notice the water in the sink is draining just painfully slowly.
And it starts gurgling at you.
Ugh, the gurgling. And then comes the absolute nightmare scenario, a toilet that just stubbornly refuses to flush, and the water starts rising instead of falling.
That is panic mode right there.
Total panic. Suddenly, this completely invisible system becomes an incredibly expensive, incredibly stressful emergency. We are talking, of course, about your septic tank.
It is the classic homeownership horror story, really.
Yeah.
Because we don't see this system every day because it's buried under, a few feet of dirt and grass, we just assume it's functioning perfectly down there in the dark.
Right up until the moment it very obviously isn't.
Exactly. And when that panic sets in, when people are facing a lawn full of raw sewage or, heaven forbid, a flooded bathroom, they start frantically searching for a quick fix.
Yeah, they want a miracle.
They want a magic potion they can just pour down the drain to make it all instantly go away.
Well, today we are cutting through all the flashy labels and the deafening marketing noise of the septic additive industry because instead of trusting the front of a cardboard box, we are relying on the hard truths from septic pumpers.
The real pros.
Right. The people who have spent over 20 years out there in the field opening up these tanks, seeing the devastation firsthand, and figuring out how to prevent this nightmare. Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how to fix a backing up tank, we have to look past the gross out factor.
Which is significant, let's be honest.
It is. But we have to look past it and actually examine the science of waste management happening right underneath your lawn.
And the science is where the real story lives. I mean, while panicked homeowners are looking for that overnight miracle in a bottle, what is actually happening in a healthy septic tank is a masterclass in biology.
Oh, wow. A masterclass.
It really is. It is entirely about long-term habits. So to understand why a system fails, we first have to understand how it is supposedly designed to work.
Right.
Most people picture a septic tank as just, a giant stagnant bucket underground that holds waste until a truck comes to pump it out.
I definitely used to think that. Just a concrete box.
Right. But in reality, a healthy septic tank is a thriving, complex ecosystem. It relies on literally billions of microscopic beneficial bacteria.
Billions of them.
Billions. And their entire job in the universe is to consume and break down human waste, toilet paper, organic material, food particles, all of it. Professionals actually call this the hidden workforce.
The hidden workforce. I love that. I look at it this way. The septic tank isn't just a holding box. It's like a delicate digestive tract for your home.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you feed it, and it has to digest that material. And we are accidentally going out of our way to murder this hidden workforce on a daily basis.
We really are.
Because the immediate reaction when a toilet backs up is always to blame the hardware, right? You think, oh no, the concrete tank suddenly collapsed, or the PVC pipes just failed out of nowhere.
But the veteran pumpers are telling us something entirely different.
Right. They point out that the concrete and plastic hardware is actually incredibly robust. Like, it can last for decades.
For decades, yeah.
These disasters are almost never sudden. It is a very gradual decline driven by our own everyday, mindless habits that slowly poison that digestive tract.
What's fascinating here is how delicate that biological balance truly is. Let's look at the mechanics of a healthy tank first.
Okay.
When waste enters, those billions of bacteria get to work, separating everything into 3 distinct layers. Heavy solids fall to the bottom, creating a layer called sludge.
Gross, but okay.
Then lighter materials, like fats and oils, they float to the top to create a scum layer.
Also gross.
Very. And in the middle, you get a relatively clear layer of liquid, which we call effluent. Now, this clear liquid is the only thing that should ever exit the tank and flow into your drain field.
And the drain field is what, the pipes in the yard?
Exactly. It's the network of perforated pipes buried in your yard where that treated liquid safely and naturally filters back into the soil.
Okay, so that's the ideal scenario. But then we start introducing the killers.
The killers, yes.
And the list of things that destroy these bacteria is essentially just a checklist of standard household items. You have excess cooking grease poured down the drain, flushable wipes, which, by the way, are a total misnomer because they don't break down at all,
Not even a little bit.
paper towels, feminine hygiene products, and then you have the chemical warfare. Harsh chemical cleaners, excessive amounts of bleach, antibacterial soaps, paint thinners.
Basically everything under the sink.
Exactly. I mean, if you wouldn't swallow a bottle of bleach and a roll of paper towels, why are you feeding it to your house's stomach?
It comes down to understanding the physical mechanism of that destruction. Like when you pour bleach down the sink, you are essentially administering a broad-spectrum antibiotic to that delicate digestive tract.
Oh, wow. So you just nuke the whole system.
You wipe out the beneficial bacteria in an instant. And when that workforce dies off, the natural decomposition process just halts. The solid waste doesn't get broken down anymore.
So it just sits there.
It just sits there. Sludge accumulates incredibly fast at the bottom, taking up the space that's meant for the liquid. Even worse, if you pour hot cooking grease down the drain, it cools and hardens into an impenetrable, concrete-like layer of scum at the top.
Oh, like a grease plug?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It literally chokes the ecosystem,
Yeah.
trapping harmful gases. So odors spike because the waste is now just rotting rather than actually digesting.
And once that space fills up, that thick, unbroken down material has nowhere to go but out. It starts trying to force its way into those delicate perforated pipes in the drain field.
Which is the worst case scenario.
Right, because those little holes get clogged with solid waste, the liquid can't filter into the soil, and suddenly the whole system suffocates and backs up into your bathtub.
Not a fun day.
No. Which leads us perfectly to the logical next step for a homeowner who just realized they murdered their entire bacterial workforce. You think, well, if it's a bacterial die-off, I just need to go to the store and buy some replacement bacteria.
It seems so simple.
You head to the hardware store, and you find yourself staring at what I like to call the additive aisle illusion.
It is an overwhelming aisle. There are, dozens of brightly colored boxes promising to rescue your failing system?
Powders, liquids, enzyme packets.
All claiming to be the ultimate cure. But the 20-year veterans are quick to point out that not all treatments are created equal, and the toxic environment you're introducing them to matters immensely.
So let's talk about the cheap stuff first.
Right, let's examine the inexpensive, powder-based bacteria and enzyme products. The professionals note several severe limitations here. First, moisture is the absolute enemy of their shelf life.
Because it's just powder in a cardboard box, usually.
Exactly. If a cardboard box of powder sits in a humid garage or, under a damp bathroom sink, the bacteria can activate prematurely.
Oh, because they sense the moisture?
Yes, but without any actual food to eat in the box, they simply die before they ever reach your pipes.
Wow. And even if they do survive the journey down the pipes, the physical properties of a dry powder can be a huge issue. Like, if you flush a giant scoop of powder, it often just clumps together when it hits the water.
Doesn't mix at all.
Right. Instead of dispersing evenly throughout the tank to tackle the waste, it just sinks like a stone to one corner of the tank and basically just sits there.
Doing absolutely nothing.
Not to mention, many of these cheaper products have surprisingly low bacterial counts to begin with. You are sending like a tiny, uncoordinated squad to do the job of a massive billion-member army.
Well, let's take a look at a brand most people recognize, Rid-X.
Yeah, everyone knows Rid-X.
It's been around for decades, and it relies heavily on enzymes and bacteria. Now, enzymes are essentially chemical scissors.
Chemical scissors.
Yeah, they don't consume the waste themselves. They just cut complex molecules into smaller pieces so the bacteria can eat them more easily.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the pros, out in exactly this field, warn that Rid-X alone is not some magical force field. If you are still heavily relying on antibacterial soaps and pouring harsh chemicals down the drain, you're just killing the Rid-X bacteria the moment they arrive.
Right, so the chemical scissors might be there, but there is literally no one left to eat the waste.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The utter futility of these products if you refuse to change your daily habits. You also see products like biotabs, which are formulated to introduce beneficial strains of bacteria to support the natural breakdown.
Well, they sound great in theory.
But their success hinges entirely on the existing condition of your tank. Like, linger on this visual for a second. Dumping biotabs into a tank completely filled with unmelted fats, heavy sludge, and chemical burns from a gallon of bleach, it is like sending microscopic reinforcements into a toxic wasteland.
It's a suicide mission.
They don't stand a chance. They will suffocate in the grease or be burned alive by the bleach. You are literally flushing money down the toilet.
Because the structural reality of the tank always supersedes the additive. No single treatment, no matter how popular or heavily advertised, can compensate for major structural blockages or years of neglected care.
You can't just sprinkle some powder on a decade of neglect.
No. If your tank is already 90% full of dense, solid sludge because you haven't had a professional pump it out in 10 years, a packet of enzymes isn't going to make that solid mass magically vanish.
It physically can't.
The tank physically does not have the capacity to process new waste, and no store-bought powder can change the laws of physics.
Okay, so if dumping standard bacteria into a toxic, oxygen-starved tank is a lost cause, how are we supposed to fix the environment itself?
That is the million-dollar question.
I was looking through the sources for this deep dive, and there's a newer approach mentioned that fundamentally shifts how we treat these systems. And the missing ingredient is surprisingly simple: oxygen.
Yes, oxygen changes everything.
The sources specifically highlight a product called SEPTIFIX that completely flips the script. But before we get to the product, we have to talk about the baseline state of a traditional septic tank, because this is where the biology gets really specific.
To understand this paradigm shift, we have to look at how a septic tank is designed. They're buried underground and sealed tight.
Right.
By nature, they're anaerobic environments. That means they contain almost zero oxygen. Consequently, the bacteria that naturally evolve and live in that environment are anaerobic bacteria organisms that survive and function without oxygen.
Which sounds perfectly fine, right?
It does, but anaerobic bacteria have a massive downside. They're incredibly slow eaters. They break down waste, but they take their sweet time doing it.
They're on island time down there.
Exactly. Furthermore, the chemical process of anaerobic digestion produces nasty byproducts. Specifically, they release gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide.
Ooh, and that hydrogen sulfide is exactly what creates that terrible rotten egg odor when a system is failing. But wait, if septic tanks are naturally sealed, anaerobic environments, aren't we fighting nature by adding oxygen? Like, why does forcing oxygen into a low oxygen environment actually help the situation instead of just completely disrupting the natural process?
This raises an important question, and it really gets to the heart of the microbiology at play. You aren't so much fighting nature as you are intentionally altering the ecosystem to be vastly more efficient.
Okay, I'm listening.
This is where products like SEPTIFIX come in. It's a physical tablet that you flush down the toilet once a month. As it reaches the tank and begins to dissolve, it slowly releases large amounts of oxygen into the water while simultaneously supplying beneficial bacteria.
So it's changing the actual environment.
Yes. When you introduce oxygen, you create an environment where aerobic bacteria can temporarily thrive. Aerobic bacteria, the ones that require oxygen to live, are completely different from their slow anaerobic cousins.
They are like highly caffeinated athletes compared to sluggish workers moving in slow motion.
That is a perfect analogy.
Bro.
Aerobic bacteria are incredibly voracious. They consume organic material and solid waste much, much faster.
Wow.
And crucially, their digestive process does not produce methane or hydrogen sulfide, which means you see a massive, rapid reduction in those foul-smelling odors.
That is a huge benefit alone.
By strategically forcing oxygen into the tank, you are cultivating optimal conditions for these fast-acting, waste-eating bacteria to thrive. They aggressively clear out the suspended solids in the water.
The suspended solids?
Yeah, suspended solids are those tiny floating particles of waste that haven't settled to the bottom or floated to the top.
Yeah.
When suspended solids flow out into the drain field, they are the primary culprit for clogging those delicate pipes.
Okay, so you are basically temporarily upgrading your microscopic workforce from standard laborers to elite hyper-efficient specialists just to clear the backlog and clean up the water.
Exactly.
But, and this is a big but, even with these advanced oxygen tablets, the results still depend heavily on you not constantly poisoning them.
They do. You still have to do your part.
Which brings us back to the ultimate question. If there's no permanent miracle pill, what is the actual protocol these 20-year veterans follow to avoid catastrophic failure? We've looked at the biology, we've debated the additives, but what is the foundational advice from the pros who pump these things out for a living?
Their reality check is incredibly grounding, and it all really boils down to preventative habits. Rather than just listing off rules, let's look at how they approach a home system.
Okay.
The absolute biggest mistake they see in the field is a homeowner waiting for a foul smell or a gurgling drain to take action. Preventative maintenance is infinitely cheaper and easier than emergency repairs.
Oh, without a doubt.
If you wait until raw sewage is backing up into your shower, the damage to the drain field might already be done, and you could be looking at tens of thousands of dollars to dig up your yard.
That is terrifying. And a huge part of that preventative mindset goes right back to being the guardian of your ecosystem. The pros are adamant about issuing a strict household ban on the killers we talked about earlier.
Yes, the killers.
No heavy bleach, no antibacterial surface cleaners poured in the sink, no paint solvents from washing your brushes, and absolutely no cooking grease. You have to actively protect the bacteria, whether they are naturally occurring or from a tablet like SEPTIFIX.
Another major factor the veterans warn about, and one that almost no homeowner considers, by the way, is the physics of water volume.
Wait, water volume?
Yeah, the industry term is hydraulic overload. A septic tank is carefully sized based on the assumption of steady, moderate water use. If you send huge volumes of water through the system too fast, you completely ruin the treatment efficiency.
Because it's moving too fast.
Exactly. The bacteria need time to physically consume the waste. If you flush hundreds of gallons of water into the tank in a single afternoon, you create strong currents that stir up the sludge at the bottom and the scum at the top.
Oh, I see.
You risk physically pushing unprocessed solid waste right out into the delicate grain field before it's been broken down.
That makes perfect sense. You're just washing the food right past the bacteria before they can even take a bite.
Precisely.
And that leads to the final non-negotiable reality of septic ownership: pumping the tank.
Yep, the truck has to come.
This is based purely on the physical size of your tank and the number of people living in your house. Generally, that means having a professional truck come out every 3 to 5 years. Which brings us to the ultimate myth bust from these veterans. Can any product, any miracle oxygen tablet or enzyme powder, eliminate the need for pumping forever?
The answer is a resounding, absolute no.
No.
No product can defy the laws of physics. Even with the most efficient aerobic bacteria in the world consuming waste at record speeds, you still have sludge.
Right.
Sludge is the dense, completely indigestible material left over at the end of the biological process. It includes things like dirt, grit, synthetic fibers from washing your clothes, and the biological byproducts of the bacteria themselves.
The stuff that just won't break down.
Exactly. It naturally accumulates at the bottom of the tank over the years and has absolutely nowhere to go. Routine mechanical pumping is a mandatory part of septic ownership to remove that indigestible mass.
It is so human, isn't it? We desperately want a magic fix so we don't have to do the chore or pay the pumping fee.
We really do.
Adding these treatments to your tank, even the really advanced oxygen ones, makes me think of how we treat our own bodies. Adding a product like SEPTIFIX to your tank is exactly like taking daily vitamins.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like, vitamins are genuinely great for your health. They support your immune system, they fill in the nutritional gaps, and they keep your internal engine running smoothly. But taking a vitamin doesn't mean you can just stop brushing your teeth.
Or never go to the doctor for a checkup again.
Exactly. You still have to do the maintenance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reinforces the core belief that knowledge isn't enough. It has to be actively applied. Understanding that you have a delicate microscopic workforce living under your grass is only step one.
Step 2 is changing the habits.
Step 2 is fundamentally changing your daily behavior to protect them. The absolute best protection for this critical piece of infrastructure is a holistic strategy. It requires a combination of sensible daily habits, monitoring what goes down your drains, scheduling regular professional inspections, and utilizing well-chosen treatments as a supportive measure, not a lazy crutch.
So what does this all mean? It means your septic tank is not a concrete box to be ignored until it ruins your weekend. It is a living, breathing ecosystem.
Delicate one, too.
Very. And if you treat it well, if you skip the heavy bleach, if you understand the biological difference between basic inactive powders and advanced oxygen-releasing tablets, and if you never, ever skip your scheduled pump out, it will quietly do its gross, essential job for decades without you ever having to smell it.
And as you think about how you interact with this hidden system in your everyday life, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
We talked about hydraulic overload and the physical limits of the tank. Next time you decide to do 5 massive loads of laundry back-to-back on a Sunday afternoon, ask yourself, Are you unwittingly creating a massive tidal wave underground that's flushing away your microscopic workforce before they can even do their jobs?
Oh man, a terrifying thought for your next laundry day. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will see you next time.